Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are so excited to have Dr. Mamiko here joining us again. Last week, we got to talk about really how our past affects our present and our future. Of course, we're talking the quality of our happiness, acceptance, capacity to love ourselves and others, and our ability to having a successful everything in life, career, family. So we really learned a lot about you and the work that you're doing to help us grow past this, to heal this, to really have us start living our best lives ever, and of course make that relationship better with ourselves and with others. So first and foremost, I'll ask you to please introduce yourself and then give us a little recap of what we talked about last week, and we'll get right into today. And also listen up, because in just a few moments we will open up the phone lines. And of course, you can call in, ask any questions you'd like. So go ahead, sweetheart, say hello.
Oh, thanks so much for that recap and that introduction, Jill. I am so happy to be here. And what we did was we talked last time about 3 specific steps that you can take to just start that growth process of being your best self. And so let me just go through each one briefly. The first one is that you've got to list the qualities that you like about yourself. And this isn't being arrogant or conceited or anything like that, but it's looking at yourself with gentle, loving, respectful eyes to create a baseline or a beginning of what you like, what you appreciate, what you love about yourself. And so some examples might be something like, I'm a friendly person who talks easily with others and can easily connect with them. I'm funny. I have a sense of humor, and I strive to do my best. So, again, you've got to be able to own those good qualities rather than so many of us tend to minimize and to put down our positive qualities, because that's one of the things that you might have been taught is don't boast, don't brag about yourself. Nobody likes to brag, right?
Oh,
So
so
the
true.
second
Yeah.
aspect is to list the qualities that you are having difficulty with, the things that you would like to improve or that you don't like about yourself that impede the level of your happiness, your ability to love, to form healthy relationships, and to enjoy true happiness and success. So let go of that criticism that creeps in, because there's that whole evaluation, based on media and what we see and hear, that I'm fat, I'm out of shape, and I don't have anything going for me. I don't know how to
Yep.
carry out a conversation. I'm awkward. I sound stupid when I talk with other people. Who am I kidding? I am a
Amazing.
so who could be attracted to me, right? And
So
anyone
true.
could do my job. I don't have any special training.
Mm.
And then there are people who have the shame about their past, where they want to keep everything closed in, whether it's sexual abuse, physical, emotional abuse, or whether there's a history of arrests and incarceration. And you'd be amazed as to the number of people that I work with that have that history of incarceration or having multiple arrests. So, in terms of behaviors that you'd like to change, it might be something as, being triggered, where you are personalizing what other people say and do to you, or you become argumentative, you become defensive, you become sad. And so I just want you to know that when you define what those behaviors are that you'd like to change, then you want to list, and this is number 3, the whys as to the importance of overcoming these liabilities or these limitations, or succeeding with goals such as losing weight, being more fit, learning how to initiate conversations so that you have more power. So for those of you who have been doing this from our last podcast, I want to congratulate you, but I also want you
Aw.
to know that for some people, it's really hard to get started, and to look at things like what you're unhappy with and all that, because that goes against your family beliefs and rules, which is what we're going to talk about in greater detail. And so one of the things that is good to do is to be like a detective and to work backwards so that we
Ooh,
identify the behaviors that we want to change, and such as being able to listen, understand, and truly get your partner.
yep.
And then, like I say, why is it important for you to change? And then, why, number four, is the current behavior a problem to you? And when you define that, that's when we get into the detail about origin of that behavior. Where is that coming from? How did these habits, if you will, or self-defeating behaviors become a mechanism for us to cope?
Yeah, my goodness. Well, hold on here. I just want to also let people know, opening up the phone lines if you have any questions while we speak. 631-307-4010. That's 631-307-4010. If you guys have any questions. In the meantime, I'm, excited you're here and really excited how we can, learn more, start creating that person that we want to be, and get those relationships that we want to have. And yeah, we're going to talk about some family characteristics and, of course, things that we can change. So let's continue. Go ahead. And please call us, ask any questions. Nothing's off limits.
Oh, great. Can you repeat that number again, please, just to make sure that everybody gets
Sure.
it?
631-307-4010.
Okay, I'm going to write that down myself too.
Yeah, you gonna call in? Yay! Six three
I'm
one
going to
three zero
call in.
seven four zero one
Yeah,
zero.
I've
Have your
got lots
friends
of
call in.
uh,
Yes, yes, yes.
I've got lots of questions, but I really have the answers that I'm going to help clarify. So thanks, Jill, for
You
getting
are so
started
welcome,
on the
sweetheart.
right foot. And
Thank you.
um, going back to our family of origin, it's important to think about them because this is where most of us have our beginnings for undesirable behaviors, and they provide the clues as to how to change them to be more adaptable, to be more self supporting, healthier. So I want you to think about, were you encouraged? Were you loved? Or were you put down? That's nothing that you did was quite good enough. And so maybe if it's the latter, you heard some repeated messages such as, you're never going to amount to anything. You're going to be a bum, like just like your dad, lazy, fat, good for nothing, slob. You're dumb. You should just drop out of school and just get a job. Oh, you think you're too good for us? Well, nobody wants to come close to you. Your face is full of zits. It's
Mm-hmm.
disgusting, and that you're oozing all over. So, what are you crying
Mm-hmm.
about? Well, if you don't stop, I'll give you something to cry about. How many
Ah.
of us have heard that from parents or heard it secondhand because it's being said to someone else? Or on the other hand, were you given supportive, encouraging, loving comments such as, we're so proud of you. You're smart. You'll figure this out. I know I can depend on you. Thanks for cleaning up after dinner and keeping your room
Mm-hmm.
tidy and organized. We appreciate how you keep our home clean and orderly. Oh, we just love you so much.
Ah.
So these interactional patterns and labeling and name calling begin to penetrate deep into our psyche and to our emotional development. So Jill, these family rules can go back many generations. So each
Mm-hmm.
then keeps passing it on to their kids and then their kids and so forth. And so that's how, the healthier we are, we begin to break that cycle of, the put downs and the self-sabotaging that we do.
Oh my goodness. I can't. It's unfortunate. A lot of us have been through this. I'm sure viewers, listeners can relate. Please give us a call, 631-307-4010 with any questions. All right. What else is on tap for us?
Okay. So, one of the things is that as far as family rules and beliefs, some of them are actually positive, but there are some that we want to look at. And so that's why we want to examine all the family beliefs that we have. Let's say that you've had a weight problem most of your life. And so what's a rule that we oftentimes have heard growing up as a kid when our parents were worried that we weren't getting enough nutrition or food. So they say, eat everything on your plate, or they grew up during the Depression. And so, anything that's put on the plate, you've got to eat it because, other people can't afford to have the foods that we have, right? So, I mean, if you look back, there are certain things like respect your elderly
Yep.
or elders, the people that are in authority. Shh, be quiet. You're too loud. Nobody can love you. You're ugly and dumb. Don't you know?
Ah,
Ah, it doesn't seem like you can do anything right. And then what about this, which relates to not only our personal well-being, but also in our careers of something like money doesn't grow on trees. You're never going to be rich. Don't talk back. And so what that does is it sets up a poverty mindset for us. But the other thing too is that there's strong rules in our culture and other cultures, like don't talk about sex,
yeah.
so we're maturing and all that. What we had to do, we had to learn about the ways that, we have sexual urges and the body changes and all that through our sex education classes in elementary school, when the boys and girls at one time were segregated and they had their own films about what was happening to our bodies. And then speaking of sex, for us women, we oftentimes were raised with a mantra, no sex before marriage. Can't do that because then you're not going to be a virgin. And
Mm-hmm.
those are just some of the beliefs that are there. And some of them are meant to be intentional and safe, like, look both ways before you cross the street. But then
Yeah.
there are others that are really damaging, for sure. And I think you're now getting some better ideas as to, the beliefs and how we tend to integrate them
Wow.
and become a part of our present.
So how are we able to change or to make new, more productive, better behaviors? How can we start doing this?
Well, first of all, you've got to look at, like I say, the good, the bad, the ugly of the beliefs that you,
Mm-hmm.
and then once you do that, then I'd like to give you some examples of how we take an old belief and then change them to a new belief. So, as an example, one of the things that we all have virtually are smartphones, right? And when we have our smartphones, we have to update the operating system or the iOS in terms of Apple, as an example. And so, that's to help us to work and to operate in our maximum capacity. That's what I want you to do, because the other side of love is that it uplifts our performance. And so you've got to be aware of the old messages and beliefs and rules that you're carrying. And then we simply create new beliefs and
Yeah.
rules. That's what I do when I get together one on one with individuals or with couples. Right then and there, it's like I really change the beliefs in your mind, things that have been ingrained for years and perhaps even generations. And it's easy to do. Would you like to have some examples of that as to, the ones that we can change easily?
How easy? I lost
Okay.
down. Yeah, you broke up at easy and it stopped.
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
I'm saying that we can actually do a couple of examples. And so if your listeners want to call in, if our listeners want to call in, I'm happy to help you right on the spot with some of them. But maybe just to bridge that gap, Joe, can you talk about, a couple of beliefs that you might have had, uh, and whether you changed them or not, or whether you're struggling with one, then you and I can actually do like a live demonstration.
That'd be wonderful. I mean, to be honest with you, like, going back to my childhood, there's beliefs where, it's funny, they were kind of unspoken beliefs,
Right.
right? Like my
Yeah, and
mom,
that's such a wonderful point, because these rules or beliefs are not necessarily said, but
yeah.
tell by their behaviors.
Exactly. Like my mother was a stay-home mom, and I look at that now and I see that's the hardest job ever. But my mom also never guided me to, do well in school or to have a career. I just somehow from my friends, I learned that path and got my education and started working. But the way I grew up, it was kind of like the man works, takes care of the woman stays home, takes care of the kids. And I felt like there was that. My sister didn't go to college. She's older than me. My brother didn't go to college. There was no, the belief was kind of that just don't go to school, just work. It wasn't, there was no talk or no communication about future. And here I am with an 8 and 10-year-old, and I'm doing everything opposite. Maybe it's too harsh now telling them you have to go to college, you have to do this, you have to be smart. But I just feel like there's unspoken, like that I kind of learned unspoken, like not to succeed and not to try, not to, which is kind of sad. But again, I still did very well because my mind figured it out, but not everybody does. And then it's like, I just can't believe till this day, my father never talked to me once about going to college. It was just so weird.
Well, I totally identify with that. When I was going to college, believe it or not, I was also working full time at a bank and as a data processor. And so
Mm-hmm.
what I was doing was I get checks from all over the city, and then I process them and put them in the right slots so that they would be processed by the bank that wrote out the checks, if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah.
And so, my dad saw me working really hard, trying to keep up, and I was struggling with my schoolwork because I was really drained and burning the candle at both ends. And so he said, "Why are you working so hard? Why don't you just, take it easy and you don't really need college. You're going to get married anyway. Why don't you just buy a new car?" I was floored because the reason that was my drive for working so hard is that I could pay for tuition and go out of state to college. That's because I started out my college career at BSU, Boise State
Wow.
University, and then transferred to Colorado, which is where I met the love of my life. So, you know,
Aw.
beliefs. And you are, Jill, a very strong person and very empowered. And so you know how to meet challenges. And as you say, not everybody knows how to do that. And that's where we're here to help you.
My goodness. Well, thank you. And thank you for sharing that as well. And listeners, again, feel free to call in if you have any questions at 631-307-4010. That's 631-307-4010. Don't be shy. You can ask anything. And you are clearly, for those that don't know, because she's very modest. And we didn't start off with a normal introduction. But again, we got to congratulate her. She is our professional of the year. And she's a psychologist, relationship therapist, best-selling author. I mean, she's doing so much, and she has much experience, and as a coach, and she's here guiding you. So, and no questions off the table, right?
That's right. Everything is open for
All
sure.
right. Well,
But while we're waiting for callers, then I want to give you an example that I think really hits a lot
sure.
of people, especially women. And that is, we as women learn to be the doormat. We learn to be the people pleaser, right? Like I've got to be quiet and, go along with everybody because otherwise they're going to get mad at me or I'm going to hurt them. And so you really don't have a voice. And so I want you to look at that as old beliefs that, you have to be this doormat. You have to just be here to please others. And along with that, there's a little perfectionistic tendency that goes along, like you got to do things perfectly, or, other people are going to get mad, disappointed, sad, so forth. And so I want you to know that it's easy to take a look at new beliefs because new
Yeah.
beliefs are the operating rules that you want to have from here forward. And so one of the things is to tell yourself, and it's really helpful to write down old beliefs and new beliefs. So the new beliefs would be when I share my true feelings, others can get to know me. Or another one is I can allow others to come closer to me. And
Yeah.
also, another part is when I am being my true self, then I can know people that truly care about me, that are my real friends. And then the other thing, too, that would be a new belief is being able to recognize and express my thoughts and feelings creates freedom to be my real self. So,
Wow.
there are ways that you can reframe, and you don't have to follow the old rules and doctrines. You can create your own that are much more supportive, much more functional, and lead you to greater thoughts and actions. Because what I want you to think about is that there's like an umbrella that protects us and guides us. And that umbrella happens to be family rules and beliefs. And so we automatically have a set of actions that we follow,
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes not even thinking about it. But what we can do now is we're going to talk next time about thoughts, the moment
Okay.
thoughts that we have that are under this umbrella.
I was going to
And
say, what are thoughts? What are thoughts?
so thoughts are different than beliefs because
Okay.
beliefs are held long time and as I mentioned across generations. But thoughts are moment to moment. And these moment to moment thoughts then influence our feelings as well as the actions that we take.
Got it.
So
Never heard of that. Thank you for that. Interesting.
yeah, so isn't that interesting how we could separate that?
Yes.
And people will say things like, oh, I'm such a dull person. And so then, where are they getting that from? And then, they begin to internalize it and it begins to affect their self-esteem. So how are you going to be a successful person in your profession or even in school or in ability to interact with other people if you're holding beliefs that are pulling you back. And so that's why it's so important to just know, just like, oh, one of the things that I should mention, and that is we actually have two different families.
Oh,
The first is family of chance. This is the family that we just happen to be born into. And so we go along with all the rules and everything because if we don't, we get punished or whatever the case might be. And so as we mature and we become more enlightened and we begin to surround ourselves, and that's why this is a real benefit of changing your family rules and thoughts, as we begin to surround ourselves with people who truly care about us and support us. These people, if you think about a pyramid of relationships, they're at the very top of the pyramid where they are our family of choice. We choose them to be our family. They don't necessarily have to be biological. Just like when we become engaged or we marry, this person becomes our family of choice, not the biological family of chance.
mm, so true. Well, I never thought of it that way. That's beautiful. We still got 3 more minutes left of the show. If someone wants to call 631-307-4010. In the meantime, what else did you kind of want to talk about?
Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is, maybe people are at work
Mm-hmm.
at this time of the day, so they're not on the call live. But I
Oh,
just want people to know that you can reach out to me. And if you go to actonlove.com, which is my website,
yep.
I want you to act on love. And when you see my website, you'll also see my toll-free number. And that toll-free number is listed there, which is 855-608-4800. You don't have to memorize it or write it down because you can just go to Act on Love. And then when you'll get a message if I don't answer it, and you can leave your name, your phone number, and a particular message. And if you have
Mm-hmm.
questions, then you can leave that on the voice message. So let's work together to truly act on love towards yourself and others. It's much easier than you think, and you don't have to do it all by yourself. So I'm here to help you and to be with you every step of the journey so that you can really be your best self.
I love it. Thank you so much. And anything else we should be aware of? Anything happening new with you? Any speaking engagements? Where can we find you?
Well, there's always a lot of things that are going on with me,
Yeah.
with our family, with our little puppy and all of that. But I'm just thrilled to do these VIP days. And I'd love to be able to have the opportunity to talk to you about it so that you can really transform in a day. And I really mean that because individual after individual and couples after couples, even those who have ADHD or attention deficit disorder,
Oh,
really find it so pertinent that their attention is there, the time flies by, and at the end of the day, they can't believe the way they can communicate, the way that they learn how to communicate, to listen to others, and to be able to support one
yeah,
another and learn
absolutely.
7 different ways of having love. So that's why I say, please go to my website. There are a lot of blogs that are also out there that can really help you.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Always a pleasure having you. And hopefully we shall meet again. drmamiko.com. Enjoy your beautiful day in Arizona. Are you home today, Arizona?
Yes,
All
I'm
right.
here. It's about 70 degrees, so it's
Oh,
beautiful.
beautiful. 40 degrees in chilly in New York, but we did have an 80-degree day the other on Saturday. So
Wow, that
it's
was a
coming
treat.
soon. It's coming our way. I know you're used to that nice weather, but we're not yet. But thank you
Right, and
again.
we got to prepare for the hot. We're
I
going to be
know.
hot, hot.
I know. Have a fantastic day and we'll talk soon, sweetheart. Thank you so much. Bye
All right,
bye.
thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.